everybody. I'm Nina Soden, urban fantasy author of the Sector C series and the Blood Angel series. And my guest today is K.M. Smith, author of Turning Point. She has been around the world, but currently resides in Texas. Writing is her passion, and writing about vampires gets her blood flowing. Growing up in Michigan and spending time in several parts of the world has provided her with a unique perspective and innumerable opportunities for storytelling. She's married to a wonderful and understanding man, and she is the mother of 2 children who test her knowledge of life and push her limits of caffeine intake daily. She is a bit of a dabbler and jumps headfirst into any endeavor she takes on, be it writing a book and turning it into a series or whatever else her heart desires. When not at her desk, she can be found smashing her way through the tennis courts in the suburbs of Houston. All right. So today we are going to talk about her book, The Turning Point or Turning Point. And if you would like a chance to win a signed autographed copy, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and comment below. If you don't comment below, I won't know that you want a chance to win and you won't get entered. So comment below. All right, KM, tell me a little bit about how you got started writing and what keeps you going.
Okay, well, first, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. What got me started writing? I guess off and on most of my life, I've been a bit of a dabbler, as you said earlier. And one day I was reading a book and I thought, I've got ideas. I can do this, and why not? And no one told me I should write. No one told me I could write, but I decided that I had a story in me, at least one, and I wanted to get it out. So that's kind of what the initial impetus was to get me going.
And was that the birth of Turning Point?
It was, and it was certainly not how it looks. It was not the same story that it ended up being, but that was how it started. Yeah.
So show us the cover of Turning Point. I know you have it there with you.
I do. This is the not for resale, so you've got that weird bar on it, but this is it.
That's gorgeous. Who designed that cover?
My good friend and graphic designer, Sandra Fowler. I can provide you with her information as well if you'd like that. She does great work.
Absolutely. And for anybody else out there looking for a cover designer, I will provide her information in the description below, so check her out. Can you read the back description to us, the book blurb, and give us a little...
I can read the blurb, yes. Right. I'm showing my age by pushing the book away from my face here. Okay. Weeks away from college graduation and a life well planned, Alice Peterson meets Adam, a powerful vampire, and a tempestuous wind portends a different fate for her. Adam will do anything, including the unthinkable, to keep Alice from learning too much about her past. Thrust into a world she thought to be fictitious, Alice must rely on wit, cunning, and newfound powers. Oh no. If she hopes to, I'm sorry, the resale sign is, if she hopes to survive. I knew it was something like that. Okay. Familial bonds are pushed to their limit and new relationships are tested. Bloodlust-fueled drama and unrelenting action drive Alice to her turning point.
Nice. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your main character.
Sure. The main character in the story is Alice Peterson. This story is a bit, different because it's told from several different points of view. But the main story really is about Alice and, her coming into her powers and kind of understanding who she is. Up until right around her 22nd birthday, she just assumed she was Alice Peterson, college student, young woman, and she had a chance meeting with Adam, the vampire in the book, and discovered that actually her family history is a lot more complex than what she originally thought. And it turns out that she has vampire blood in her that she didn't know about as well.
Okay.
So
she's part vampire?
She is, and she didn't know it because nothing seemed different until she had this chance meeting with Adam, and it kind of sparked all of these memories and things to come to life for her. And she's on an internal journey, and there's an external journey as well, because her father, who's been missing, wants to meet her. Well, come to find out, it's kind of this big love triangle between Adam and Alice's mom and Alice's dad, whose name is Drew. And their stories kind of overlap, and we're trying to figure out, where does everybody fit, and where has Alice actually come from, and who is she on the inside and on the outside? And she's trying to reconcile her distant past and her current past and her future all at once. It's kind of all hitting her at once. So there's a lot going on.
Is this young adult? Is it new adult? Is it adult? Where does it fall?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't list it as young adult because there's quite a lot of swearing in it. And there are some scenes that allude to sex. There's nothing super graphic, but you know what's happening.
Yeah.
Possibly new adult, I guess. So either new adult or adult, I would say. I mean, some people probably wouldn't have any issue with the amount of swearing in the book and having their young adults reading it. But I try to think of, like, my kids are in 8th grade and 5th grade. And, my 8th grader reads at a very high level. So he's heard these words before, know. But I try to think, like, would you put it in a high school library? Maybe, but probably not. So.
Okay. Very cool. Tell us, what makes your vampires different than vampires that you may read in other books?
That's an interesting question. Well, I don't know how really different it is, but Adam tends to, they all kind of operate under a bit of a code. You're familiar with Dexter,
Oh, yeah.
Dexter, right? So Dexter, he's a bit of a vigilante, right? And he determines who deserves to get whacked, right? At the end of the day. And I think the vampires in this book typically are like that. They're not, I wouldn't call them vegetarians. Isn't that what Edward is, right?
Yes.
And the other ones, I wouldn't say that they're anything like that. And if it came down to between their survival and yours, they care about themselves more.
Okay.
But I think they have a bit of a moral code, I guess, that they follow.
Okay, so they're not the typical bad guy vampires, but they're also not the straight up good guy, white shirt,
Yeah, that's right. That's
Okay.
right. They're not just, full on, bloodlust running after and killing everybody, but they will if they need to, if the situation arises. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me a little bit about what you read and how what you read affects what you're writing.
That's a good question, because I do find that I have to be a little bit careful of what I read, because I hear those voices of, other authors' use of voice, and not that I mimic it, but I hear it and I feel like it's kind of informing how I'm thinking, I guess. I read a lot of different stuff all across the board, but typically I read a lot of urban fantasy. Excuse me. Who have I got into recently? Oh, there's the paranormal women's fiction is kind of a newer genre that I've kind of recently been turned on to. I've read a few books from authors in that series, or in that genre. And I mean, then I also read things like presidential biographies, and I like Robert Ludlum, and so I like action and adventure, and I'm not a huge romance person unless there's supernatural stuff involved. But I'm more interested in the action and the adventure in the story. I think that comes through in my too. I'm not huge on the romance side of it, but I think a little bit is fun and certainly makes sense, right?
So your readers can expect just a little bit of romance in your books?
Yes, there's certainly some flirtation. There's some desire. There's a little bit of unrequited love, but it's not. You're not going to find your happily ever after necessarily. Yeah. So, yeah.
So when did you start writing Turning Point?
Oh, goodness.
How long did that process take you from concept to publication?
Right. So 5 years. It took me 5 years, but not 5 consistent years. Okay. I would go for several months where I was full on, I'm writing every day and getting words on the paper. And then I would go for several months where I wouldn't even look at it. I've got 2 young kids. We had just moved back to the States. And probably within about a year, I started writing it. And so I had a lot of, there were a lot of things that I was learning about being back in the US and just a lot of different changes in life in general. So I didn't always focus on it as much as I should. Probably the last 2 years, I really focused on it. And then I got cold feet. And they were icy cold. Like it was done. It was written. It was edited. It was proofread. And I just sat on it.
Couldn't hit publish.
I couldn't. I couldn't. I was so nervous and so scared. And, I have a friend who writes, she's a self-published author. She writes romance novels. And so I would kind of, come to her like, how do you do it? How do you just let this thing out into the world? And what if people hate it? What if they don't want to read it? And it's funny because we were on vacation. We were going up to Colorado. We'd driven up there and we stopped in New Mexico for the night and we were in the hotel room and it was ready. All I had to do was hit publish. That's all I had to do. So I was like, you know what? Now's the time. So from a small hotel room in Raton, New Mexico, I hit publish and it went live. So,
but that really is a huge fear, especially that very first book. Just hitting publish, it means so much. As an author, it means so much and it changes things.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that fear. I know hitting publish is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
No.
The first time, it gets easier.
I believe you. Yeah, I believe you because even now I wouldn't say like, oh, whatever, but I do feel a sense of, well, sure, this is my blood, sweat, and tears, but I've done everything I can do to make it the best I can make it.
Right.
And now it's up to people. If they want to read it, then please do,
And as an author, you're never going to please everybody. So
that's right. Yeah.
There are going to be people that absolutely love it. There are going to be people that are just like, whatever, I can take it or leave it. And there are going to be people that hate it.
Yeah.
That is with every single book, with every single author. So
right.
As long as you're happy with it and you as an author say, I've done the best I can do with this book, I think that's the time to publish.
I agree with you. Yeah.
So what made you go the self-publishing route as opposed to the traditional publishing route?
Time, I think, was the biggest, one of the biggest drivers was because I had already sat on it for so long and it had already taken me so long. And I thought, well, if I try to, query and send it out to people, it could be years and years. And I've already taken years and years. And then I could still be rejected by, 20, 30 people. Or more. So I didn't want to wait, I guess. I was impatient, I suppose, is a good way to put it. And I also, I like to do things myself. So, so, I just said, well, I guess, I had my friend, she's got 10 books she's published now. So she's kind of a veteran self-published author now. And so I had her experience to learn from and to kind of have a guide. And I thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So, and then, ultimately it was time. I just wanted to get it out there and get it done. So. That's what I did.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
So you've got Turning Point. It came out when? When was it published?
December 28th, 2019.
Okay, so a year ago, almost a year ago.
Yep.
What is next? What are you working on, or what are you about to publish? Where are you in the process of your next work?
Yes, good questions. And this is stuff that's all fresh in my head, so I can answer these questions.
Good.
So I'm working on book 2. There's no title. But this story continues to follow Alice. This story is told entirely from her point of view.
Okay.
So I switched it. I've made it into first person, and it's coming directly from her. We see where she is, and we see that there's even more to her family history than what she knew about. And it comes from both sides. It's not just from external things. There's things that are kind of inherent in her family. And we're learning about where that came from and how she's going to deal with it. And then there is actually a love interest in this one. I don't want to give too much away, but there is a bit of a love interest in this one. It's still not very hot and heavy, but I think it's going to cover probably, I don't know, a year maybe of her life. And I think it really shows how she deals with maybe her own transformations and maybe her own personal demons, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Very cool. Now, where does the book take place? Is it central to where you're currently located, or did you pick up a made-up location? What is it?
No, so Turning Point is set in a small college town in Michigan called Albion, and that's where I initially went to school. Okay. So I'm well aware of where places are and kind of how one might interact with the scenery there. And then so we pick up, and Alice is in Chicago. She's moved to Chicago. I've also lived in Chicago. So I've set it in a different part of the city slightly different part than where I lived. But I like to use the familiar, because then I like having something concrete to tie things back to.
Yep.
And so there are some things that I've made up, but a lot of the places are real or were real or real adjacent, so yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, this wasn't something that I'd expected to talk about, but you're from Michigan.
Yep.
I'm from Michigan.
Oh.
So what are your stomping grounds in Michigan?
Oh, that's funny. Okay. I'm from Kalamazoo.
Okay. I'm originally from downriver. So Southgate, Wyandotte, Trenton, that area.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. All right. Very good. Yeah, there we are.
Yeah. Okay. I always have to ask whenever I meet somebody new that is from Michigan, I always have to ask. In my book, my first series takes place in Michigan as well.
Okay.
So it's always nice to hear another author writes about Michigan.
That's very cool. Yeah. I actually knew some people from Wyandotte. I think I went to college with them. A lot of people from Albion are from the east side of the state. So yeah, how about that?
Very cool. All right. So let's go, and I want to find out, how did you come up with the title of Turning Point?
Yes, that, well, I was trying to be a little bit clever, right? Because, when you're reading a vampire book, you talk about the person has been turned, when were they turned? Mm-hmm. And then the word point, because fangs are sharp and pointy. So, right. So that's just the kind of the basic where that came from. But also, more importantly, I tied it in because pretty much every character that has a point of view in the book reaches a turning point in their lives and in the story, and something shifts for them, and they have to make a choice how they're going to move forward. So the book is about all of the different turning points for the characters, but specifically for Alice, most importantly. So
Okay. And did you have the title before starting to write it, or did the title come later after you wrote the book?
The title came later. The initial title, which was not a good title, and I knew I wasn't going to keep it, but I had it something like Searcher or Alice's Search or something like that, because she was supposed to be finding out about her dad, and she does, but it ended up becoming more than that. So
did you know that it was going to be urban fantasy when you started writing?
I maybe sort of, I guess. Yeah, it doesn't really, it's kind of on the cusp of urban fantasy and just a vampire story, but I guess because it's got more of the female lead, there's a lot of urban fantasy in it. I always think of Anne Rice when I write, because that was, for me, that's home, right? When you read about vampires, that's kind of the quintessential, in my experience, quintessential vampire story and vampire series. And so I think about how she presents her stories and her characters. And I wouldn't say that those are urban fantasy at all. It's more vampire fiction, which also is kind of a weird thing to say because vampires are fiction. But yeah. So.
Okay. What inspires you creatively or in your writing? What do you find inspires you the most?
Gosh, that's a good question. So I kind of take inspiration from my surroundings and maybe conversations I have or overhear. I take inspiration from the way other authors have told their stories. Sometimes I try not to follow what I've read, not because it's bad, but because I want to be different. Yeah. So I guess a lot of it comes from what I've read, I would think, more than anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears just a little bit. I know you said you worked on this book for 5 years. It's been out for about a year. So you've been writing for roughly 6 years.
Yeah.
You have littles at home. So how do you find the time to write with kids at home, especially during the pandemic? Has the pandemic changed your way of writing?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. So my kids are both at home. They're doing virtual school, so they're here all day. And so it's kind of good because I'm here, and if they have questions, they can come to me, and I'm usually just sitting at my desk, and they come and say hello between classes and things like that. So there are a lot more interruptions, I guess, Yeah. You try to get into a flow and you get a hug instead. And yeah. And you're never going to say no to the hug from the tween, but sometimes you're like, I'm writing,
Yeah.
Let me write. So it's easier now because they're older. But when I started this, I mean, my daughter was in first grade, I guess, kindergarten or first grade. So that was harder, but she was at school. So I had the daytime while they were both away to do a lot of writing. And from 4 p.m. till 9 p.m. is them, I'm not myself, I'm mom, for sure. And then after about 9 p.m., it's winding down time. So, so I try to be disciplined, and I try to write, I had in my calendar, work on the book from this time to this time. And then I would block off that time so that once you put it in the calendar, it counts, right?
Yeah.
And inevitably things would come up, but I would do my best to honor that stretch of time every day.
Yeah. Time blocking actually does make a huge difference, I think.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you don't work full-time. You are a full-time author. Is that correct?
Sure. Yes.
That sounds like a question, that yes. It's supposed to be an answer.
I know, right? Yeah. Yes, I feel it feels a little bit hard to own that because I feel more like the HR department in our family rather than, I'm not the breadwinner by any means because of my writing, so, but yes, full time, this is what I do.
So
Creativity.
What does that look like for you? Do you work it full time? Do you get up, you set your hours, you sit at the desk? I mean, obviously there are interruptions with the kids, but you do it daily? Is your writing something you do on a daily basis?
I do attempt to write every single day. Some days, as a self-published author, I'm also the marketing department and, PR, and I have to do all of the other things. And graphic design work other than my cover, I have a designer, but everything else, any kind of social media stuff I put out comes from me. And I actually find that really tiring, creatively. It pulls a lot from me. And so if I have a day where I'm working on social media, I tend not to write on that day. And I'm not at the point where I'm super disciplined about it yet. I make sure I'm doing something productive with regard to my writing. But, yesterday I sat down to write and instead I started, drawing a graphic. So it pulled my creative juices in a different direction. Yeah. So, yeah.
So when you write, are you a pantser or a plotter? I'm more of a pantser, but for book 2, I am a plotter. And I've got a full outline and I keep referring back to it. I think it's easier because I know my characters better. Yeah.
And I feel like I know what they would do and where they would go and how they might react. And so that helps me plan the future of the story, right? Not just as I go. And the first book was very much, I was a pantser, and I had a vague idea, but I didn't have, step 1, step 2 and plot point A and B and all that. This time I have, the 3-act arc and everything. So I've got it all set. So I'm switching a little bit.
Okay. One last question before we kind of go to the end of the interview.
Okay.
What does your editing process look like?
All the time editing.
So you edit as you write?
This time I'm really trying not to. I'm really trying not to. I did actually just the other day go back and rewrite a little bit of the very first scene. And it's because something came to me in a way to express it a little bit more succinctly in a more interesting way. But this time I'm really trying to just keep pushing forward and getting the words on the page and then come back and make them pretty, I'm a wordsmith by habit. I could wordsmith a sentence to within an inch of its life, but I enjoy that. I enjoy trying to come up with the exact right word for the exact right sentence, for the exact right moment. And I do it better on paper than I do in person, but I do enjoy that. So I edit heavily and often.
Do you hire an editor at the end or do you do it yourself?
I hire an editor at the end. I try to polish it, make it, proofread it as much as I can. I had a proofreader for the first book as well, which I would do again. Even though there's a lot of really great programs out there that do a lot of that kind of work for you, it's still good to have a second set of real eyes, at least 1 second, set of eyes on it. So, I have an editor, and I would have it proofread again too.
Okay,
for sure.
So, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like my viewers to know about you or your book?
We've covered most everything. I do also have another work in progress. I've got 2 that I'm working on. One is kind of setting off to the side for a minute, but it's something I'm really excited about because it would be a standalone series, not connected to Alice's universe at all. But it's about vampires and tennis. And it's 2 things that I really love. And I thought I've never really read a book about that because, there's usually quite preppy and you don't really see a lot of vampires on the tennis court. But I thought, I feel like I could work that into a story. And I started and I got several chapters in and switched gears back to following up with Turning Point, and I really want to get that done. But look for that in a year or two, probably.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants a chance to win Turning Point, now is the time. Click like, click subscribe, and comment below. You have to comment below. That is the most important part. Look at that cover. I absolutely love the cover.
Thank you. I'll tell Sandra that. She'll be very pleased.
It's beautiful.
Thank
All right,
you.
so I end all of my interviews with a hot seat. It is in honor of James Lipton's Inside the Actors Studio questionnaire. So if you've ever seen the show, you'll know what's coming. If not, more fun for me. So 10 questions. There are no wrong answers. Don't give me explanations. Just answer the question top of your head. Okay?
Okay. All right.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word, in Spanish, it's bicicleta. Yeah.
Okay. What is your least favorite word?
Oh, moist.
Yeah. What turns you on?
What turns me on? Intelligent conversation.
What turns you off?
The opposite of that.
Okay. What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, rain.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Scream, like screechy, screamy sounds.
Okay. What is your favorite curse word?
Can I say it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, fuck.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Gosh, if I could, I would play tennis professionally, but I'm sure that ship sailed.
What profession would you not like to try?
Oh, maybe being a doctor.
Okay. Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
It's about fucking time.
Nice. Okay. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it. And it was fun to have you on.
It was really fun for me too. It was fun to be here, and I really enjoyed the experience. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
All right. That's the end of the interview. Everybody, make sure you comment below so you can get into the drawing to win a copy of Turning Point, an autographed copy of Turning Point.
Yep.
And the winner will be announced a week to 2 weeks after this video goes live. All right, that's it for now. Bye, everybody.